Hello world, this is Sputnik Tripilator, and right now I am in New York City, which is where I live, and I have been away from YouTube for quite a long time, but I have decided to make a video because I am seeing a lot of people losing their shit online, and going around saying that New York City is under martial law and making all of these weird claims. I am right here, and I am not seeing any of the stuff a lot of people are talking about. And these are people who are pandering and pandering to fear pretty much in order to sell their freeze-dried foods and survival kits and stuff. That's all well and good. I mean, you gotta hustle, I guess. But I think it's not fair for the people who are placing trusts on these individuals who are doing this. So I decided to start reporting from ground zero since I am living here. And so the city is pretty much dead. That much is true. Times Square is empty. And the Walgreens by my house, which we don't even call it Walgreens down here, we call them Duane Reads. The Walgreens by my house has instated a policy where they only allow 10 people to go inside the store at a time. And so you walk around and you see long lines of people, not long lines, but I mean, noticeable enough. It's not just like 2 or 3 people waiting outside, but you see like 20 people, 25 people making a line waiting to go inside the store. There are people still walking around, but for the most part, people are trying to give each other space, and as of yet, there aren't that many people on the streets. There is an issue, though, that I noticed. Well, I wouldn't call it an issue, but I do notice something very peculiar about New Yorkers, and especially in New York City. We have the highest number of cases in the nation, right? And right now, Chinese cases are going down, while the cases in the United States are starting to peak, right? They're on an upward trajectory. And the Italian cases are also, well, they have a high number of cases because it's been spreading around Italy for quite some time. But I think they're going through their peak now, and then they're going to start declining within the next few days or months, or weeks, sorry. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that New York City has supposedly the largest number of people who are infected with the virus in the nation, or right now, the whole world, I think, if I'm remembering well. But if you were to go out and walk the streets of New York City, you will notice that people are very, very chill. They're not walking around in fear or losing their minds or losing their shit, but like most people online are, or you will go on certain YouTube channels and you will hear the hosts of those channels literally losing their shit. And I do believe it is true this crisis is being used to usher in further erosion, to our rights, our constitutional rights, even though the Constitution does not grant any rights to anybody. We still call them constitutional rights because the Constitution, it's there to ensure that those rights are respected, right? But it is very clear that the Constitution does not grant them. So there's that. Anyways, people are walking around like normal. But then again, there's something really weird that I notice about New York people, and it's the following. Everybody is eerily calm. There is a sense of knowing. There is a sense of awareness about something that a lot of people are not talking about in the media. And a lot of people are not talking about it in the media, and a lot of people are not talking about it in on the streets either. But everybody is very well aware of it. And it is the following. If you have been paying attention, even if you're not into conspiracy theories or any of that sort of stuff, but if you're just a regular person who is watching the news and is analyzing the stories as they come out, you would have come to the conclusion a long while ago that the virus has been spreading since at least December. And a large population of New York City residents have been aware of that fact even since before December. I want you to think about this. Where does the largest population of Chinese people live? You may probably think that this is a very stupid question because obviously the largest population of Chinese people live in China, of course. And you'll be right. Now, I want you to think about this other question. Where does the second largest population of Chinese people in the world live? I'll give you a hint. New York City. Not only that, but there is a very large number of people who travel, or who used to travel, because right now we're not traveling as much, who used to travel from China to New York City. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people traveling from China to New York City every single month. We started to hear about the spread of the virus. Somewhere, there were some reports that came out in January, but it didn't become part of the collective conscience until the beginnings of February. And I believe that, there were rumors and there were reports of a mystery illness in China that the Chinese government was covering up. And I was watching W7, who was reporting on it. And there were a lot of articles online. Well, not a lot, but there were some articles online. And to those who are paying attention to this sort of stuff, if you think back, you will start to realize that, oh, wait a minute, this thing is been going around for quite some time. If the thing if the coronavirus started to spread in China on supposedly on December. But here's the thing, the Chinese government has been, according to reports, the Chinese government has been, they knew about it for a long time before they made it public, before they actually um, admitted to the rest of the world that there was this illness happening and that it was getting out of control and it was killing a large number of people. So they finally admitted to it in February. But that thing had been spreading since December. Again, hundreds of thousands of people traveling from China to New York City since at least December. And you are going to tell me that not a single one of those people carried the virus with them when they were traveling from China to the US? Not a single one of them? Not one. I am here to tell you that the population of New York City is, for the most part, is either suspicious or highly aware of the fact that the virus has been going around, at least New York City, since December, and that a lot of people already got it, and a lot of people already recovered from it as early as the beginnings of January, because I think it started spreading in full force in December. And by January, by the beginnings of January, a lot of people were already recovering from it. And because people suspect that what they had wasn't just the regular flu, and I can tell you because I had the flu, or what I thought at the time was the flu, but looking back at the symptoms and the severity of it, I am suspecting now that I did not have the flu, but what I had was coronavirus. A large number of New York residents, New York City residents, are probably on the same boat. I think that now that they're, yeah, obviously that was the beginning of it all, and I think that was a really big, there was like a first wave of people getting infected with it, and now that they're testing for it, it is obviously still spreading, but I think it's not going to be as crazy as people think it's going to be, mainly because a large number of people already had it, and most likely they are immune to it at this point. Now, that is not 100% certain because since this is a novel virus, we don't really know. But we don't really know how it will develop. We don't even know if people who already got it actually develop an immunity to it. But we do know that the coronavirus is the same virus that causes the common flu. And there is reason to believe that if you develop immunity to the common flu once you get it for the rest of the season, that it should be the same with this virus as well. But again, we don't know for a fact. Anyways, people are being cautious because even if you got it and you're immune to it, other people who are more vulnerable, you could infect those people. You could bring the virus with you and infect them. So you do see people the very few people who are taking public transportation, when they get on the trains, they are not holding on to the handles, or everybody is um, cleaning their hands with alcohol based sanitizers and that sort of stuff. People are definitely trying to comply as much as they can with orders. I am myself what they call an essential worker, and so I do have to show up to work, even though I try to avoid it as much as I can. But I still show up to work. And because I am an essential worker, sometimes apparently some people from my company have been questioned by authorities who want to know why they're taking public transportation, or why is it that they're out late, or because I work an overnight shift. And my company started to give out letters for us to show to the police in case we're stopped on the streets, so that the police is aware of the fact that we are essential workers and that we are working for this particular employer, which is a very, very well known global employer. And there is a number that they can call to verify that we actually do work for that employer, and that we are allowed to be on the streets commuting to that employer. So that's what's happening right now. Restaurants, there is a restaurant in my block that has been closed for at least 3 or 4 days now. And even though a lot of other restaurants who have closed down their dining rooms are still able to make some money by delivering, the truth of the matter is that a lot of the restaurants had had to shut down completely. Um, Mainly because they're not necessarily restaurants in the full sense of the word, but they're like bars and taverns that their main business is made through selling alcohol and having people go in and sitting down and drinking, and they just happen to also sell food and maybe employed a waitress or two and a chef or something like that. And it's very sad because New York City depends a lot on tourism, and China was one of the biggest sources of tourism, if not the biggest source of tourism for the city. And yeah, it's quite, the city feels different. It feels like a different place. It's a different energy for sure. But in addition to the majority of, or a big number of people feeling like there is no need to panic because we already had it, most likely, I am looking at the response of the government in general, the federal government in general, and all the things that are happening. And I'm listening to the analysis of a lot of YouTubers who are paying attention to what's going on. And I'm talking about people like, I think his name is Last American Vagabond. I'm not entirely sure if I am remembering it correctly. But there is that, and then there is a call for an uprising. There is Jeff C. All those guys I've been following for quite a long time. And I'm paying close attention to what they're saying, and I'm also paying close attention to what I am seeing around me. And even though they're not in New York, when they go around saying, "Oh, this thing has probably been spreading for months now," yeah, yeah, we 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 agree with you. I agree with you. Definitely, this thing's been spreading for months. Again, the second largest population of Chinese people lives in New York City, and they have been traveling unrestricted for the months of November, December, and January, and I think even February. February. I don't remember exactly the date of the travel ban that President Trump instituted, but there was unrestricted travel between the two countries for at least 2 months, and people were just passing the virus back and forth freely. And not only that, I am aware of the fact that a certain population living in New York City was aware that the virus was spreading, because I noticed, and then I started to connect the dots later on, but I noticed that certain certain people were being overly cautious, and I didn't put two and two together until after the story of the virus broke. Anyways, so yeah, this thing's been around. This thing's been around. It's been around for a while now. And I think the large amount of people who live in New York City already got it. I suspect that I already got it too, because I got the flu in December, and it was the most horrible episode of flu I've ever had in my life. But everybody around me also had the flu. And I am saying, and when I say everybody, I mean everybody. You will get on the train and everybody had sniffles. You will go to work and everybody had sniffles. You will go to school and everybody had sniffles. Like, everybody got infected at the same time. And everybody kept saying the same thing. Wow, this is the worst flu I've ever had. But it wasn't. I mean, you could feel the difference. You could feel that what you were, it felt like you have been bitten up really badly, really badly. Your muscles, your muscles were, my muscles were feeling very sore. I had a very intense dry cough that lasted for about a week or two. There was very little phlegm. There was very little. Well, it was a very cold weather, so I had a runny nose, but it wasn't because of any flu, phlegm, or anything like that. It was mostly because of the cold weather influence on my nose. And everybody who lives in cold weather, they understand what I mean. Um, there was fever the first day before I started actually coughing, and it didn't. The illness itself didn't last all that long. It lasted like 3 or 4 days. And then after the 3 or 4 days, what really lasted was the dry cough, and it was very it was very intense, and it was so dry but so persistent that my throat became irritated. I'm surprised I wasn't coughing up blood from like scratching my throat of so much coughing, but it was definitely an intense episode. But I was normal. Um, I was able to. Everybody had it at the same time, and everybody was out on the streets. Everybody was going to work. I mean, I highly suspect that I got it from work because there were people who were sick at work. And I never get sick, I never get the flu. So I didn't think too much of it. But when they started to talk about this flu, I started to realize, wait a minute, everybody got really sick at the same time. And everybody was complaining about how bad this episode of the flu had been. And I also suspect the flu has been misdiagnosed because I I heard one of the teaching faculties person at my school recalling that she thought that she had the coronavirus at the beginning of the year before they started announcing it, but but the doctor said that it wasn't the coronavirus, it was actually the flu, the B strand of the flu. And when I heard her saying that, I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's really strange that the doctor said that one, what you have was just flu, but two, that it was the B strain of the flu. And the reason why I found that particularly interesting is because the novel coronavirus, if I remember well, is categorized as a beta or beta, as opposed to alpha, right? It's a beta strand of the coronavirus. The virus that causes COVID 19, which is the SARS something something 2, it's also known as the beta strain or the beta strain of the coronavirus. And B obviously stands for beta or beta. So, are doctors really misdiagnosing the disease or the viral infection? Or are they just covering it up? I don't know. But I found that peculiar. And I just wanted to say that. Okay, I just wanted to put this out there. A lot of people are just self quarantining, and I wish I could do it too because I don't want to. I don't feel comfortable going out just because there is suspicion that there are more than one strand of this COVID-19 causing virus floating around, and that maybe the strand in Italy is not the same as the strand in the US or same as the strand in China. But yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Mm, if you've made it this far, I just wanna I just wanna say thank you for listening and please be safe. But most importantly, keep your cool and don't panic. Even if you suspect you had it already, you still have to be cautious because you are not you're probably not gonna get it for for a second time, but you can pass it on to other people, and you can pass it on to people who are probably vulnerable and could die of it. So if you have elderly people in your house or people with compromised immune systems, for their sake, you have to be careful. Anyways, I'm leaving now.